So basically, we are dealing with chapters 13 to 24. And one of the things that I have tried to do is include some photographs for those of you who may not be familiar with some of the venues. And the one on this first slide is, in fact, a green in a village somewhere in Yorkshire, possibly even Yoxham. So here's my plan. I'm afraid I pinched James Roddy's session from a previous one. So I'm basically going to introduce the chapters, then give hopefully brief chapter summaries, talk a little bit about what I thought the themes were in these chapters, and propose some possible questions for discussion. Now, those of you who are not familiar with London or Marylebone might not recognize this building, but it is St. Mary's in Marylebone on Wyndham Place. And if you jumped over the tower turret, you would be in Wyndham Street, which of course is where Lady Anna and the Countess and the Thwaites were lodging prior to these chapters and even at the beginning of these chapters. I'm afraid you'll get photographs. So have a nice look for those of you who don't know where we are. These two photographs are of York. York Minster at the top, looking towards it, and the shambles below, which are basically at the base of York Minster. Okay, introduction. This novel is quite short, and it does have a single plot line, but with multiple viewpoints. The characters think differently. And sometimes, possibly, they think differently because there are removals, dislocations, changes. And in this set of chapters, there is the dislocation of Lady Anna from Marylebone to Yoxham up in Yorkshire, where Lady Anna is exposed to what is presumably mostly an unknown world to her of upper class, or at least upper middle class, the squirearchy. But there are also changes in relationships, possibly, connections, possibly, or disconnections. Some of these are between Lady Anna and the Lovels at Yoxham. And remember, Lady Anna has thus far only met Lord Lovell once, albeit alone. Between Lady Anna and Daniel Thwaite, one might think about that. And I think also somewhat relevantly, the relationship or lack thereof between Lady Anna and the Countess, her mother. There is also this dislocation after going to Yoxham back to London, but not back to Marylebone. She ends up in Keppel Street, Bloomsbury. And for those of you who are fairly familiar with Trollope will know that Keppel Street, in fact, is where Anthony Trollope was born. Fairly upper middle, upper middle class in Bloomsbury, tucked behind the British Museum. And then, of course, we find towards the end of this set of chapters that Lady Anna is dislocated or relocated to Bedford Square with Sergeant Bluestone and his family. So think about that as we go through the chapters. Right. Chapter 13. So there's an issue at the beginning about how to issue the invitation from Yoxham Rectory, or Vicarage if you prefer, to whom And from whom should it go? And to whom should it be sent? Well, we discover that it's, in the end, sent from Aunt Julia, the rector's sister, the senior lady in the house, to Lady Anna, not to her mother, because they are not yet sure that the Countess is the Countess, much as they are not yet sure that Lady Anna is Lady Anna. But the Countess, when she reads the invitation addressed to her daughter, realizes that she must obtain money for Lady Anna's clothes and accoutrements. So she goes to her solicitor, Mr. Goff, and begs, I suppose is the nice way to put it, but cajoles him into giving her enough money to provide for Lady Anna and to give her the right clothes and the other things she might need to appear to be equal, or dare I say it in the Countess's eyes, better than those at Yoxham. A maid, much to Lady Anna's chagrin, is engaged. Her name is Sarah, though we don't find that out immediately. And she is going to accompany Lady Anna. So Lady Anna is dispatched to Yoxham via York. You saw the York photos. And the view in the photograph below is kind of the way that I really thought Yoxham might have looked in the Yorkshire Dales. And a lot of Yorkshire does look like this, for those of you who know it. And for those of you who don't, trust me, my in-laws live there. But Lady Anna is demure, and she impresses Aunt Julia, who was dispatched to meet her at York. And they seem to get along really rather well. Lady Anna is only cautiously welcomed by the rector. She impresses the ladies of the household, rector's wife, Jane, Mrs. Lovell. She's embraced by the young Miss Mary, nicknamed Minnie, and she seems to get along really rather well with the younger, school-aged boys. I reckon she really wanted to go out and, I don't know, hit a cricket ball or something with them. So we move on to when Lord Earl arrives. Lady Anna sees the poised and elegant beauty of the genteel life before the Earl arrives. She anticipates the Earl's arrival with a mixture of dread and longing. She does actually seem to like him based on her single meeting with him. But she is quite concerned, and most of us know why. She is torn in two, remembering her promises to Daniel, and she does refer to him, or the narrator does, as her lover and her master, Daniel. But she is attracted to Frederick, Lord Lovell. Lord Lovell arrives and is embraced by his family, as we see. He goes in to meet Lady Anna in the vicarage library, and that's really a sort of photograph attached that might be what a vicarage library in Yorkshire might look like. And he goes in before he dresses for dinner, mindful of duty, possibly to marry her, or is he really, truly interested? At this stage, I, at least, as a reader, am unsure. And during dinner, post-dinner, Lord Lovell proposes a family trip to Bolton Abbey, only about 15 miles away, and it is agreed. We also find out in this chapter that the Countess's letters to Lady Anna keep the family duty pressure on Lady Anna. Anna responds to her mother but she doesn't mention Daniel. And she asks for another, a different way to be found to divide the money, the presumed at this stage inheritance. Hmm. And so we make the journey to Wharfdale. The two slides below I will describe in a little more detail before, but these are both at Bolton Abbey. These actually are my photographs, shockingly. And by the way, none of these are require any kind of a license, so you're welcome to borrow or use. A few days later, after their agreement to take this journey, the party, but without the rector himself, with one of his curates instead to keep an eye on things. They undertake the 2-day excursion to Bolton Abbey, which of course therefore includes an overnight stay. They stay at the Devonshire Arms, which by the way nowadays is a very posh hostelry on the grounds of Bolton Abbey, in case you're looking for somewhere nice to go. They've got at least one, if not two, Michelin stars for the restaurant. After visiting the ruins of the abbey, which pretty much look like my photograph, Frederick, or at least Lord Lovell and Lady Anna, cross the Wharfe River on the stepping stones here. And there are actually 40 of them. They're about 18 inches apart, occasionally more than that, but approximately. Now, in jeans and hiking boots, not a big problem, but in a muslin dress with a fairly long skirt and boots you might be wearing in the 19th century might be slightly more difficult. Hence, Lady Anna is a bit timid. She isn't wearing the kind of, I don't know, hobnailed boots she might have been wearing in Cumbria when she was a girl. They reach the stride, and that's the slide in the lower right hand side of my screen. And it is at least what we would call a cascade, if not a rushing river. And it's probably around here at least a meter wide. And of course, Lord Lovell had wanted Lady Anna to leap across the stride, and they were only together. But, she does finally get up the courage. She leaps across and falls into Lord Lovell's arms. But as you might imagine, if you look at these ledges, she clips her ankle and sprains it. Apparently not too badly, because she hobbles back to the carriage. So we move on. In the morning, Lady Anna's sprain has recovered, and she does want to walk down again to the stepping stones. Oops, sorry about that. He arranges to accompany her alone. He puts off his lovely cousin, Minnie, and says, "Oh no," but who Minnie recognizes. He wants to see Lady Anna alone. And they sit in this beautiful meadow. This might not be the one at Bolton Abbey, but it's certainly one I photographed up in Yorkshire. And he repeats his marriage proposal, this time with what seems like much more enthusiasm or heartfelt feeling. But apologies. Despite her heart being full, as the narrator tells us, Lady Anna is in a quandary. She feels forced to explain about her betrothal to the tailor. And Lord Lovell, quite frankly, is shocked, amazed, and perhaps even horrified. So the pair return to the inn in silence. So, here we are back in Yorkshire and looking over the way they probably ended up going back. Lady Anna is, quite frankly, dismayed. She weeps in private in her room. She goes up straight away. Lord Lovell, Frederick is repulsed by Lady Anna's admission, as is mentioned in the previous chapter, and he sulks, not really knowing how best to proceed. He is aristocracy, after all. The Lovell party is quite somber that evening, and the next day they return to Yoxham in quite a somber mood. At Yoxham, Lady Anna informs Mrs. Jane Lovell, the rector's wife, that she has rejected Lord Lovell's proposal, but does not disclose the reason why. It's not clear that everyone else knows this at this point, but the somber mood of the party suggests that they at least have an inkling that one or the other of the pair has rejected the idea. The disappointment from the Lovells in Yoxham is masked by at least guarded civility for the rest of the evening. And here we go. Too heavy for secrets. Lord Lovell realizes that he must leave Yoxham and requests an interview, though, with Lady Anna before doing so. There he asks from her and receives from her permission to inform his barrister of her commitment, not to inform his family, simply his barrister. So he wanders down to Sir William's chambers in London, and those of you who don't know the chambers, this is the sort of place where Sir William's chambers might have been. This is down in very close to Lincoln's Inn, and it's very likely, it's very tight, close of chambers, and it's very likely that Sir William, the Solicitor General, may have had his chambers there or somewhere similar. At Sir William's chambers, Lord Lovell confides in his gentleman barrister, and I put that in quotes because Sir William, besides being a baronet, did in fact attend independent boarding schools, and he is of the upper class. And so Lord Lovell thinks of him as being, if not an equal, at someone close to being an equal, and gives him the information regarding Lady Anna's betrothal to Daniel Thwaite. Sir William, as we know, is actually pretty clued up, we think. He advises that the marriage between Lord Lovell and Lady Anna would be the most expedient for the young man's purposes, to achieve some of the money, and possibly even to achieve, hopefully, to achieve Lady Anna's hand. So pursuing the marriage is a good thing for Frederick Lord Lovell, on the basis that Lady Anna's legitimacy is right, and that is something of which Sir William is convinced. He can find no reason to suspect that Lady Anna is the legitimate heir of her father, the previous Earl Lovell. So here we are. Okay, the disillusioned Lord Lovell has now departed from Yoxham. Lady Anna feels stranded at Yoxham. Though civil, the company are no longer cordial. Lord Lovell asks his family to keep Lady Anna there, by letter he writes, but in between times, Lady Anna reckons that the betrothal is likely to leak out. So she writes to her mother, and the letters actually cross in the post, saying that she is coming in inverted commas, home, because she isn't, in fact, going home, but also that places in the coach have already been reserved for Anna and her maid. Mrs. Lovell, Mrs. Jane Lovell, sends Lady Anna and her maid Sarah off, with the rector having persuaded her husband, the rector, to accompany Lady Anna and the maid to York for the mail coach there. But after Jane says to her husband, "Take my words, she," referring to Lady Anna, "is a good girl." Mrs. Lovell actually believes in Lady Anna. And there's a shot of the possible carriage that they took from Yoxham to York. So here we are. Well, we have some interesting developments in this chapter. Sir William, with all kinds of weird things going on here. Susan will know much more about this than I, but there is so much crossover between the various solicitors and barristers, between the two parties, that I'm not sure this is actually legitimate, or at least not. Maybe it's legal, but it's very odd for barristers and solicitors on opposite sides, possibly solicitors, but not barristers, to speak to each other. But nonetheless, the Solicitor General has enlisted he, the barrister, has enlisted his solicitor, Mr. Flick, to speak to the Countess's solicitor, Mr. Goff, to tell the Countess about the betrothal, so that the Countess does, in fact, know about the betrothal. And the Solicitor General, Sir William, also asks Flick to deal with Thwaite. We'll talk about that a little more in another chapter. But Flick does, in fact, get in touch with Goff. Two solicitors, opposite sides, get together. But the Countess, knowing now about this, which she suspected but had not confirmed, decides she must leave Wyndham Street, where the Thwaites were ensconced as well, in Marylebone, for Keppel Street, which is Bloomsbury, as I mentioned, just north of the British Museum. For those of you who want to find it, it's now part of UCL and part of the hospital, but apart from that, it's still there as a tiny weeny street. Lady Anna comes in from York to the Saracen's Head, an inn just west of, for those of you who do know London, it's the west end of the city, just west of St. Sepulchre, at literally the west end of the city, practically Bloomsbury, but definitely the lawyers' district. And they take a carriage to Keppel Street, where the Countess has taken rooms. The photograph at the bottom is not Keppel Street because, as I mentioned, it's now UCL Hospital and part of the university as well. But this is, in fact, Bernard Street. But this is what it would have looked like back in the day. Bernard Street is tucked in back just behind Great Ormond Street Hospital for Children, in case anybody wonders. So it is the same neighborhood, about 3 streets along. But before Lady Anna has even unpacked in Keppel Street, she and the Countess fall into the first of many confrontations over Daniel Thwaite. And they end with the Countess trying to extract a promise from Anna that she will never see Daniel again. And Lady Anna's response at the end of the chapter: "I cannot say that, Mama, because I have promised." So, chapter 21, the narrator, Trollope, we think, he reviews Daniel's and Daniel's father, Thomas's, Waite's history with the Countess and Lady Anna. A little bit about the things we missed at the very beginning of the novel. We remember that Mr. Flick, but shockingly, he, at the Solicitor General's request, sends for Daniel to offer what we today, it wasn't in the book this way, but it's the way I think of it, a buyout. In other words, he wants to offer Daniel money to leave Lady Anna alone. Daniel attends and he engages in the conversation with Mr. Flick. And Daniel comes off very well in this debate about Lady Anna and her money. He really does claim and, in this reader's view, believe that he loves Lady Anna and he doesn't love her money. And he makes a very good argument that he doesn't want her money. He wants Lady Anna. So here he is in the lawyer stroke lion's den, but he manages, and that's the photo, he then escapes the lawyer stroke lion's den before Flick even has an opportunity to make a concrete offer. Interesting strength from young Daniel. We shall see more of that in future chapters, one supposes. The Countess begins this chapter by persecuting her distressed daughter, trying to force her to give up Daniel Waite and to embrace Frederick Lord Lovell, but to no avail. The Countess's barrister, Sergeant Bluestone, is dismayed when he learns of the state of affairs and suggests that Anna visits his family at Bedford Square. Come and stay with us. And Anna becomes a prisoner with gilded chains. That's in the book. This is a view of Bedford Square in at least spring blossom. And you see, if you look through the trees, what the houses there looked like. And they were individual houses then, mostly flats now. Anna becomes very close friends with younger-ish Alice Bluestone, about her age, I should think, or a tiny bit younger. And the girls exchange confidences, many of them. Alice, wise beyond her years, explains patiently that the aristocracy is of a higher order than the working class. And she quotes Luke, I think it's chapter 16, verse 26, the biblical story where Abraham cannot be approached by someone of the aristocracy. And that, in fact, gives the title to this chapter. There is a gulf fixed, a chasm between the good people and the bad people. There is nothing between heaven and hell. There's nothing between the aristocracy and the working class. Sergeant Bluestone has an interview with Lady Anna and tells her that Lord Lovell will dine with them the following day. An interesting following chapter. At the beginning, the chapter gives insight into the earls, and they use that as the entry. They don't call him Frederick Lord Lovell. They call him the Earl, emphasizing the aristocracy. But it does give us insight to Frederick's thoughts and the possibility, and in his case, probability of reconciliation to his cousin and marriage to her. Separately, Lady Anna's ambivalence towards Lord Lovell and Lady Anna's thoughts, because she meets, weirdly, the Solicitor General, the opposing barrister, and his wife, and in fact, Alice's, one hopes, or she hopes, intended black-browed barrister, before Lord Lovell arrives. He arrives and smiles upon Lady Anna. But they quickly move into dinner, repair to dinner, and they probably ate at a table similar to the one that I posted onto this slide. But of course, in that company, no private conversation can really take place between the pair. Dot, dot, dot. The following morning, Lord Lovell comes to see his cousin. That's the way it was phrased in the book. The rest of that chapter is the tete-a-tete, where Frederick, Lord Lovell, expresses his wish to marry her, and Lady Anna vehemently claims to love him, Daniel the tailor. But she is unsure. Internally, Lady Anna does have serious doubts, but she resolves to keep her promise to Daniel. In the end, Lord Lovell extracts a commitment that Lady Anna will think about his proposal for a week and then write to him. Okay, the final chapter of this series, Dog in the Manger. It's based on an Aesop fable. Daniel's doubts about Lady Anna torment him. Should he or shouldn't he persist? He is the worker bee, Daniel, and Frederick is the drone. The analogy seems apt. After all, it is the drone's job to mate the queen. Mrs. Bluestone and the Countess, surreptitiously, work together, as ladies do in that era, to act against Daniel. And the Countess summons Daniel to Keppel Street. Daniel says, she, Lady Anna, can choose as she pleases, and let us take her at her word. The Countess responds, you can never marry her, Daniel. The impasse. What will happen next? Daniel continues with his self-doubt. Was he acting the part of dog in the manger? Robbing others of happiness? Is he trying to take something he doesn't really want? In his heart of hearts, he believes he loves Lady Anna. But was he making her miserable by his love? Right. Okay. A few ideas on themes. Oh, and by the way, the photograph is Wigmore Street, which is where the tailor's shop will have been on the upper floors, and the measuring places for the aristocracy and the squirearchy on the ground floor. Attitudes. Aristocracy or squirearchy, if you're thinking of the rector, and indeed most of the clergy that we have met in most of Trollope's novels, compared to working class. Social ties, social tensions, male dominance, and that is, in my opinion, a question in these chapters. And over whom? There is obsession, in my opinion, at least in some cases. There is love, probably. There is desire, probably. And then there are the issues that really, really come through here. Honor, dignity, duty. What about obedience? To whom should one feel obedience? If so, why? What do these chapters tell us? I would say they're very rich chapters. I'm so excited about these chapters. It was delightful that Dominic allowed me to introduce them. So here are a few questions. You can even keep the slide. How do they express the aristocratic values compared to those of the working class? How does character development move the plot, or vice versa? And this slide at the top here is actually a slide I took of Derwent Water when I was up in Yorkshire a few years ago. Does that matter? Does that make Lady Anna calm? What about the Countess and her obsessions? What is stroke are it or they? That is worthy of consideration. How does the theme of obedience make a mark in these chapters, or does it? Has Lady Anna developed in these chapters, and if so, how or how not? One question that is really a particular curiosity of mine: if Lady Anna was brought up in a rude, or at least working class, Cumbrian household, how is it that she is demure and refined? And then there are the issues of the men. Male dominance. What have we learned about Lord Lovell? What have we learned about Daniel's personality traits? What about the lawyers and their behaviors? I mean, are they legitimate, whether they're legal or not? This is definitely a question for Susan and the other lawyers in our group. Is relocation, i.e., different venues, relevant? Why or why not? Have fun.